Morning glory, evening grace, brother and sisters. Good to have everybody back along with us here with our Temperance Awakening, and look forward to continuing in our alcohol lecture here today. And today we're going to be looking at alcohol and disease. Looking at alcohol and disease. And so just to get right into it here today, a disease is, the official definition of disease is any impairment or injury to the normal function of an organism. And alcohol, is a very potent substance that few organ or body systems are immune from its effects. Some of the effects described above, that we've mentioned here, could give a little bit of a health benefit, but most of them just are not at all. That's why it's just best to completely abstain from alcohol, because the little bit of good that might come from drinking is just greatly, greatly overshadowed by all of the harm that it does, especially whenever we're talking about heavy or abusive drinking. And no doubt, people have heard about making decisions, like we've mentioned, that decisions that we make and facing challenges, learning about new things, and learning about new things, situations, and so forth. We have to balance that when we're talking about alcohol. See, and the thing is, when it comes to alcohol and our health, the bad effects of alcohol are just so bad, and the good ones are just so minuscule that they're hardly at all, even worth mentioning. And see, the thing is, even when it comes to these, and we say that because even when it comes to what people say, what some people consider to be benefits of drinking alcohol, they're very, very biased. They're biased. Like researchers who study the benefits of alcohol, they almost always exclusively focus on one people group. And that's older, educated, professional people. Older, educated, professional people, usually males, and we'll mention why we're saying males in a moment here. We've already mentioned that some. I believe mentioned that last week. But just about all these studies, though, have to do with older, educated, professional men. And see, when you talk about that, all of these people here, people that are older, talking middle-aged, like middle-aged to older people, who are educated and professional, people like that are usually very, very inclined to take good care of themselves anyway. Those are going to be people that have access to good health care, and they're going to, once again, they're educated people. They know the right kind of food to eat. They know the right kind of exercise to do. And like all of this, people that favor alcohol is always for that people group. And these the men, that they usually look at here when we talk about these good health benefits, they're very moderate drinkers. They're men who just drink once a day, at the most, have a few drinks a week, and so it's very, very biased. This is what's called a built-in bias, because, they're targeting, educated, professional people that are mature. And see, and those characteristics, they make, this people group, a select population that can't be fairly compared to other groups, especially young people and women. And like first here, we'll look at, here at teenagers. When it comes to, not just teenagers, but really any young people, that's going to be like 25 years and older. But especially, though, that younger, like early 20s group to teenagers, their brain, particularly the portions of the brain responsible for learning, memory, and decision-making, excuse me, it continues to develop through young adulthood. And these younger, younger learning brain is very sensitive to the damaging effects of alcohol. And scientists have demonstrated in problem-solving situations that consuming the equivalent of just one drink can impair learning ability in younger drinkers up to the age of 25, and that can even also be true for like older, for older people when it comes to drinking, because some people, are very sensitive to alcohol, but especially, though, with young people, like up to the age of 25. The same amount of alcohol may show no effect on older people's brains in similar situations. So, you, your brain, and, for that matter, the rest of your body may have a lot of growing to do before you can think. Before you can really, think, in a very, very mature manner. And then once again, looking at moderate drinking. Moderate drinking is a very, very relative term. That is to say that every individual reacts to alcohol differently. What's really is moderate for one person, could be excessive for another. And speaking of that, many people who do end up having, serious liver damage from drinking, from drinking too much, will often say that they are only moderate drinkers and they've never even been drunk before, because even with moderate drinking, there are actually also a lot of health consequences. There are consequences even with moderate drinking. That's why maybe the couple of good benefits that these studies claim to have, they're greatly overshadowed, because even moderate drinking, can be bad for a person's health. And so we got a question here. We answered this last week. Probably what we were just mentioning there gave a lot of people inclination to the answer. But is this a fact or fiction? Men and women are not equal when it comes to drinking. Men and women are not equal when it comes to drinking. Is that a fact or fiction? That is a fact. Very true. See, women who consume 2 or more drinks a day may increase their risk of breast cancer by as much as 41%. Women drinkers also develop alcohol-related brain, heart, and liver damage much faster than comparable male drinkers, even whenever they drink less alcohol than men. And so that's very much a fact there. And now looking at the bloodstream, alcohol superhighway. The bloodstream, which is alcohol superhighway. Like people who say alcohol goes right to your head, meaning your brain, they're right. That's where you first feel the effects of alcohol is on the brain. But alcohol also goes to every other organ and cell in your body. And it uses your bloodstream to make the trip, making the bloodstream alcohol superhighway. See, our bodies digest, or they slowly break down most of the food that we eat into nutrients, which are absorbed by the body, and waste materials, which are eliminated. But see, unlike food, alcohol is not digested. And see, that's a major, major issue with alcohol. See, even if you're a moderate drinker, that's a major reason why even moderate drinking, can have a bad effect on a person's health. Because it's not digested. Whenever a person drinks, alcohol passes directly into their bloodstream through the cells of their digestive tract. It begins its journey, in your mouth and throat, where 5% of the alcohol in a drink enters the bloodstream within seconds. Then it travels onto your stomach, where 25% of it is absorbed within minutes, and then it ends in your small intestine, where 70% is absorbed within an hour. It takes from 30 minutes on an empty stomach to 60 minutes on a full stomach for all the alcohol in one drink to enter your bloodstream. And once alcohol is there, the heart circulates it via your blood to all parts of your body. The greatest amounts of alcohol go to those organs that receive the biggest supplies of blood, your brain, liver, and kidneys. And the largest of these organs is the liver, which has the vital task of metabolizing or breaking down alcohol and removing it from your bloodstream quickly and efficiently. The liver can do this at the rate of about 1 drink an hour, so if you consume more than 1 drink in an hour, the liver becomes overworked and cannot metabolize all the alcohol in your body. See, once again, that's another issue simply with moderate drinking. See, if you just have, 2 drinks, within 30 minutes, like a lot of people do, then your liver is already overworked. See, and then, they're just... common sense, the more that a person drinks and the more quickly that they drink, the less efficiently, your liver's going to work. And the result is that larger quantities of alcohol remain in the bloodstream for a longer time. And because alcohol travels to and affects all parts of the body, this type of drinking too much too quickly can cause severe health problems for your body. See, occasional episodes of this type of drinking can cause minor, short-term health problems, but even just one episode of chugging or drinking one drink after another can put a person in the hospital. And a regular pattern of overdrinking can have serious long-term health consequences. And now looking at alcohol and the GI tract, or alcohol and the gastrointestinal tract. Alcohol irritates the lining of the mouth, throat, esophagus, the stomach, and the intestines. Possible short-term or minor health problems include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, heartburn, gastritis, ulcers, and irritable bowel syndrome. Frequent alcohol use damages the delicate linings of the GI tract and increases the risk of mouth and esophageal cancers, especially if an individual smokes. See, alcohol has also been labeled a co-carcinogen because it works together with tobacco to significantly increase the risk of certain cancers, like we mentioned that when we did our tobacco lectures, like a book that I just had published at the present time of this, Temperance from Tobacco, a biblical exposition on tobacco. We actually mentioned that in that book. We went over that. Whenever you combine alcohol and tobacco, your health problems just double. Like Harvard Medical School's Consumer Health Information Service reported in 2001 that more than 80% of mouth and esophageal cancers are the result of alcohol and tobacco use. Frequent alcohol use also may increase the risk of stomach, colon, and rectal cancers. The pancreas, which is the organ that produces insulin and helps your body digest food and process sugar, is very sensitive to alcohol's effects. Pancreatitis and inflamed and painful pancreas is one of the most common results of frequent alcohol use. And now looking at alcohol, your liver, and cirrhosis. The liver breaks down alcohol or removes it from your bloodstream at a relatively slow rate. As we said, they're just 1 drink an hour. Consequently, overloading the liver with too much alcohol on a regular basis has serious effects on how well the organ functions. Because the liver acts as the body's primary filter for other toxins, drugs, and substances, a liver badly damaged by alcohol affects every system in your body. Once the liver stops functioning, the body quickly dies. Scientists still don't know exactly how alcohol damages the liver, but they know that it does, and they know the damage occurs during the breaking down process. Early signs of alcohol-related liver damage include alcohol hepatitis and inflammation of liver tissue that can cause nausea, vomiting, and fatigue. A fatty liver is another early sign of liver damage. Normally, the liver breaks down fats to produce energy for the body, but if the liver is overtaxed with breaking down alcohol, it burns the alcohol as energy instead and allows fat to build up in the liver. Mild liver damage can be reversed if you stop drinking because the liver has the remarkable ability to regenerate itself, so that's certainly a good thing. If a person stops damage, well, whenever we're talking about mild liver damage, if you stop drinking, it can regenerate itself and repair. However, if a frequent drinker continues drinking, then the overworked liver develops a network of scar tissue. And this is called cirrhosis of the liver, and it is irreversible. Nothing you can really do about it unless you have a liver transplant, which cirrhosis will lead to complete liver failure and premature death. And now looking at alcohol, your heart, and your blood. Frequent alcohol use raises blood pressure and heart rate, both of which make the heart work much harder to pump blood through the body. Higher blood pressure can cause a variety of problems and often needs to be controlled with medication. Another less common effect of frequent alcohol use is a condition called alcoholic cardiomyopathy, or a beer drinker's heart, which is what it's called for somebody that drinks. In this disease, caused by years of excessive alcohol consumption, the heart muscle is inflamed and weakened, and in advanced cases, the heart can no longer pump blood. The major components of blood are red blood cells and white blood cells. They too are very vulnerable to the damaging effects of alcohol. Red blood cells carry oxygen and hemoglobin, which contains iron to all parts of the body and removes waste materials during circulation. When red blood cells are damaged by alcohol, they become sticky and cling together. This slows the blood circulation, deprives organs and tissues of vital oxygen, and encourages blood clotting. White blood cells are the great infection fighters and the key defensive players in your body's immune system. Some white blood cells produce antibodies that destroy infecting bacteria and viruses. Others attack and kill infections directly. These are called killer white cells. White blood cells, which have a short life, are constantly reproducing themselves to fight infection. Alcohol damages white blood cells in 3 ways. First, it reduces the ability of the cells to create antibodies to fight infections. Number 2, it impairs the process of blood cell reproduction. And then number 3, it slows down the infection-fighting action of killer white cells. Damaged white blood cells make for a weak immune system. Alcohol also damages the immune system by keeping the body from absorbing enough vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients from food. Even if you have a good, varied diet, alcohol may keep you from enjoying the full health benefits of that diet. And now looking at something else here, the male reproductive system. Scientists love acronyms. That's where acronyms come from, using just the first initial of words and complicated medical terms and phrases to create new words, such as AIDS, AIDS. That stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. And another acronym for males who are for males is the HPG axis. That stands for hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. And that stands for the three key glands in the male reproductive system: the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the gonads, or testicles. Gonads is another name for testicles. And see, frequent alcohol use damages all three glands and the hormones that they produce. And the results of this damage can include a lower sperm count and abnormal sperm, impotence, which is the inability to maintain an erection, shrunken testicles, and enlarged breast. And so what that could lead there is a man, not being able to reproduce. That will cause his reproductive system to be greatly damaged and possibly not be able to have children. So, there's a myth that alcohol enhances sexual intercourse, but that's all that is, a myth. It's wrong. That's something that is fiction, and his thoughts is on the contrary. Alcohol actually hurts sexual intercourse. And then also now talking about women as well. And researchers, kind of back in the late 90s, early 2000s, researchers began to acknowledge that women were a unique group when it comes to drinking and the damaging effects of alcohol. For one thing, women are more vulnerable to alcohol-related health diseases than men, like we mentioned earlier, like we mentioned our last lecture, and just like we mentioned in our lecture, like all of our lectures, like about tobacco as well. Women, they have more severe health consequences, like when it comes to drinking alcohol and with tobacco as well. Women develop liver and brain damage more quickly than men do, even whenever they drink less alcohol. In young women, frequent drinking also may interfere with bone growth or encourage bone loss, increasing the risk of osteoporosis, a bone disorder that causes bones to become porous and brittle. And as far as young women's reproductive system goes, excessive alcohol use inhibits the growth of the ovaries and the production of hormones that regulate ovulation, menstruation, and fertility. Frequent drinkers may have fertility problems later in life. See, just like with men, they can have reproductive problems and also suffer an increased rate of miscarriages as well. And drinking during pregnancy also can have profoundly damaging effects on a fetus. And then particularly looking at alcohol and your brain. And perhaps nowhere else are the toxic effects of too much alcohol seen so quickly and dramatically as they are when alcohol hits the brain. Drinking can damage a person's personality, lower their inhibitions, and encourage inappropriate, silly, or just downright dangerous behavior. And a frequent alcohol use can change your brain's chemistry, erase parts of your memory, affect your ability to learn new tasks, and make decisions, and lower your IQ. And two of the most disturbing alcohol-related brain problems are blackouts and alcohol psychosis. And looking here first at blackouts. A blackout is an alcohol-induced period of amnesia or memory loss. It's not the same as passing out when you're unconscious. And a blackout, which can last seconds, minutes, or hours, or in the case of some very bad alcoholics, days or weeks, a person appears normal, though usually drunk, to the outside world as he or she talks and interacts with others. But he or she later has no memory of that time. The person can't remember what was said or done, or who he or she was with, and will never be able to retrieve that memory, not even under hypnosis. This is called an in-block blackout, or total blackout, and is the most common form of blacking out. Sometimes people have what are called fragmentary blackouts, where partial memory is restored when something jogs the recollection. Scientists used to believe that only serious alcoholics had blackouts, but now experts agree that even one episode of overdrinking can cause a blackout. It's a frightening phenomenon to the drinker, but in the best case scenario, though, he or she is probably just embarrassed. At the worst case end of the spectrum, what happens during a blackout can change somebody's life, forever, depending on what they've done. And now lastly here, well not lastly, we'll just look at one other thing briefly here, but next to last, alcohol psychosis, which we mentioned. Alcohol psychosis is a group of brain-related symptoms that occur after frequent heavy drinking, often during alcohol withdrawal, which is the combination of painful and uncomfortable symptoms alcoholics feel when they stop or, drastically cut back on their drinking. The symptoms are similar to those of the psychiatric disorder called schizophrenia, and they can include auditory and visual hallucinations, which are seeing and hearing things that aren't there, convulsions, which is violent shaking of the body, delusions, which are phobias, which are excessive and persistent fears, a violent language and or behavior, and delirium tremens. Delirium tremens, which are commonly called the DTs for short, and they are intense, terrifying mental images that can happen if a person stops drinking for 3 to 4 days and are accompanied by high fevers and extremely aggressive behavior. The DTs involve profound anxiety and insomnia along with convulsions. Alcohol psychosis is a serious life-threatening condition that requires hospitalization. And so just the last thing that we wanted to mention with all this is what you don't know will harm you. What you don't know will harm you. And see, that's why we give these lectures here. Considering alcohol's role in human diseases and the way they affects people, it's best to abstain from it completely. Know that there are many health and social, consequences that go with drinking. And be a smart, mature person and abstain from it. And so thank you so much for being here with us today. Good stuff that we're looking at. As always, well, as usually always, we like to give the heads up with the next lecture that we're going to be looking at, which is alcohol and violence. So getting more there into the social things, looking at alcohol and violence next week. Very, very much needed lecture there. So come on back and be with us. And we'll see you next time here at Temperance Awakening. Until then, until the direction of the shadows flee away, I am Dr. Cooper and I love you and I appreciate you.